So, what's a leader supposed to do when they have the absolute perfect chance to get revenge? That's what we're diving into today. That intense, gut-wrenching choice between personal vengeance and a much higher form of justice.
I mean, just picture it for a second. The one person who has been relentlessly hunting you, the one who wants you gone, is suddenly at your mercy, totally vulnerable. What do? What's the right call? This is the exact dilemma at the very heart of the story we're exploring.
Now, we're not meeting some triumphant king on his throne here. Nope. We're meeting David as a man on the run, hiding out in the wilderness. And to make everything worse, his mentor, the prophet Samuel, has just died. David is at an all-time low, and it's right here, in this moment, that his character is going to be tested like never before.
All right, so test number 1 kicks off not with a king, but with a wealthy and frankly arrogant landowner. David and his men are desperate for supplies. They make a totally reasonable request, and the response they get, well, it triggers a vow of absolute, bloody vengeance. And this whole conflict really hinges on two people who are complete opposites. You've got Nabal, who the source straight up calls stubborn and wicked, and then you have his wife, Abigail, who's described as both intelligent and beautiful. Their collision with a furious David is what sets this whole thing in motion. So here's the spark that lights the fuse. Nabal doesn't just say no. He mocks David, calling him the son of Jesse. Now, this wasn't just stating a fact. It was a well-known taunt, a way to belittle David, to paint him as a nobody from a family that didn't matter. For David, this is a massive insult, and his reaction is immediate and deadly. He gears up to kill Nabal and every single man in his household.
And here's a perfect little bit of irony for you. Nabal's name literally means fool. You can't make this stuff up. He is absolutely living up to his name, and his wife, Abigail, is about to use that to her advantage.
This is where Abigail steps in and pulls everyone back from the brink. Her approach is just a masterclass in diffusing a crisis. First, she shows incredible humility, bowing and calling David her lord. Second, she takes all the blame on herself, which is just an amazing move. And third, and this is the genius part, she appeals to his future. She reminds him that giving in to personal revenge now would stain his entire legacy as the future king. She's not just saving her family, she's saving David from a terrible mistake.
And it works. Abigail's words cut right through David's rage. He praises her for her wisdom and turns his army around. So David chose restraint. And what happens next is pretty significant. About 10 days later, the Lord strikes Nabal dead. Justice is served, but not by David's sword. David recognizes this, thanks God for it, and then he takes the now widowed Abigail as his wife.
Okay, so David passed the first test, which was with a civilian. But the second test? This one is way more dramatic, because now he comes face to face with the man who is actively trying to kill him, King Saul. And believe me, the stakes could not be higher. Saul isn't messing around. He's brought 3,000 of his best, most elite soldiers into the wilderness with one goal: find David and kill him. But instead of running, David does the absolute last thing you'd expect. He takes his nephew Abishai, and under the cover of total darkness, they sneak right into the middle of Saul's camp. They find the entire army fast asleep, with King Saul right there for the taking. This is the moment. Abishai sees this as a sign from God, the perfect opportunity. He says, "God has delivered your enemy to you. Just let me kill him." It's the logical, practical thing to do. But David's response is just stunning. He refuses, not because he suddenly likes Saul, but because of a principle. Saul is the Lord's anointed. To kill him would be taking matters into his own hands, matters that belong to a higher power. So what does he do instead? He takes Saul's spear and his water jug, the things that were right next to the king's head. This is such a power move. It's undeniable proof that David was there, that Saul's life was in his hands, and that he chose mercy. He makes his point loud and clear without shedding a single drop of blood. So after David gets to a safe distance and reveals what he did, Saul kind of have a meltdown. He calls David my son and admits, "I have sinned, I have played the fool." But the source material makes it pretty clear that this isn't some true change of heart, it's just a fleeting emotional reaction to nearly dying. Saul's paranoia and hatred, they're still there. I mean, that level of self-control is almost superhuman. So you have to wonder, right? How did he do it?
What was possibly going through his head that let him walk away from a perfect chance for revenge, not once, but twice? Well, we actually have a window into his inner monologue.
The source material connects these events directly to Psalm 54. This was a prayer David wrote at this exact time, when he was being betrayed and hunted down. This psalm is like a peek directly into his soul, and it shows us where he got his incredible strength.
And this is the core of it, right here. In the middle of all that chaos and danger, David declares, "God is my helper, the Lord is the upholder of my life." He wasn't relying on himself or his own plans for justice. His absolute belief was that his defense, his ultimate vindication, was in God's hands, not his. And that faith is what gave him the power to show restraint.
So let's pull all this together. What do we actually learn from these two incredibly dramatic tests? The stories of Nabal, Abigail, Saul, and David really give us a powerful case study in the consequences of our choices. When you break it down, it's pretty clear. The outcomes are tied directly to what drove them. Nabal was driven by his own foolishness and greed, and he was struck down. Saul was driven by fear and instability, and he lost everything. But look at the flip side. Abigail's wisdom and courage saved everyone, and David's restraint and faith kept him on the path to becoming king. So, the key takeaways are these. First, wisdom, like Abigail showed, can totally disarm destructive rage. Second, taking personal vengeance, which David almost did, can ruin a legacy forever. And maybe most importantly, these stories show that restraint is a sign of incredible strength, not weakness. It proves that real justice can be trusted to a power higher than our own impulses. And all of that brings us to the final question, really. When we face our own conflicts, big or small, we're standing at the same crossroads. Are we going to follow the path of the fool like Nabal, the path of the obsessed avenger like Saul, or the path of the wise and the restraint like Abigail and David? The choice, in the end, is always ours.